Good day, everyone. I am Mark Del P. Inoho, and welcome to this pre-recorded video presentation about the topic General Psychology. Today, we will explore essential concepts, theories, principles, and strategies that help us understand human behavior and mental processes. Whether you are a student, an aspiring teacher, or someone who is interested in how people think and act, this video will give you a solid foundation in psychology. What is psychology? Psychology helps us make sense of ourselves and others, from how we learn and remember to how we interact in groups. Throughout this video presentation, I will also give real life examples and reflections to help you connect these ideas to everyday situations. So, let's begin. As we all know, we are all familiar of what psychology is. But before that, I will give you the comprehensive definition of what is psychology. Psychology is the scientific study of behavior and mental processes, including how people think, feel, and act in different situations. It aims to understand the internal, our mental, and the external, our behavioral factors that influence human functioning. Psychologists investigate various topics such as learning, memory, emotions, motivations, personality, development, and mental health. Psychology also helps explain why people react to different challenges and how they cope with problems. It combines research from biology, social sciences, and education to better understand the human mind. This field is essential in everyday life because it gives insights into relationships, decision making, and our personal growth. For example, psychology helps teachers understand how children learn, assists counselors in treating anxiety, and guides employers in motivating their workers. And by understanding human behavior, psychology empowers people to improve their well being and interactions with others. Just like, for example, in a classroom setting or in a community, a psychologist helping a teenager manage anxiety and depression, a teacher applying psychological strategies to improve student learning and motivation. Next, a company using psychology to boost employee motivation. A counselor guiding a client through grief using psychology principles. And with that, we can say that psychology opens the door to understanding ourselves and others. It is the science of the mind that makes life better and more meaningful. At this point of time, let us proceed with the major psychological perspectives. The first perspective is what we call the behavioral perspective. The behavioral perspective focuses on observable behaviors that are learned through interaction with the environment. It emphasizes that behaviors are shaped by rewards, punishments, and associations, and it disregards internal thoughts or feelings that cannot be seen. Psychologists like John Watson and B.F. Skinner believe that human behavior can be controlled and changed by manipulating environmental stimuli. This perspective highlights two key types of learning. First is what we call the classical conditioning or the learning through association, and operant conditioning is the learning through rewards and punishments. Meaning, it is widely used in schools, therapy, and behavior modification programs because of its practical application in shaping positive behaviors and eliminating negative ones. Teachers, parents, and employers often use behavioral principles to encourage desirable actions. Just like, for example, if a student is rewarded with praise for good behavior, they are more likely to repeat that behavior, and similarly, consequences like removing privileges can reduce unwanted actions. The behavioral perspective shows that environment and experience are powerful influences on behavior. For example, in a classroom setting, a teacher gives a reward for submitting assignments on time. Another example, a parent gives extra playtime for finishing homework. Third, a manager praises an employee for good work to increase motivation. And lastly, a child avoids touching a hot stove after being burned once. This is learning through consequence. And with that, we can say that behavioral perspective teaches us that every action is shaped by every consequences. If we want change, we must change the environment that shape our behavior. The next perspective is the cognitive perspective. So, the cognitive perspective focuses on how people think, understand, and process information. It studies the mental processes behind decision making, problem solving, memory, perception, and language. Cognitive psychologists believe that behavior is largely influenced by how individuals interpret and mentally represent the world. This perspective goes beyond what people do and looks at how they think about what they do. It helps explain why two people in the same situation may react differently based on their thoughts and interpretations. This perspective is widely applied in education, counseling, and therapy, especially in cognitive behavioral therapy, which focuses on changing harmful thoughts patterns. And understanding the cognitive perspective helps improve learning. As we all know, our problem solving and emotional management, and by recognizing the challenging negative thoughts, people can change their feelings as well as their actions. For example, a student uses mnemonics to remember key terms for an exam. Next, a person challenging negative self-talk during therapy. And the driver remaining calm during traffic by rethinking the situation. And for example, he will say that I will use this time to relax. And lastly, a child solving puzzles by thinking through steps carefully. And the cognitive perspective reminds us that how we think shapes how we live. And by changing our thoughts, we can also change the world. The next perspective is what we call the humanistic perspective. It emphasizes the inherent goodness of people, their free will, and their potential for personal growth. It focuses on helping individuals achieve self actualization or reaching their fullest potential. Humanistic psychologists such as Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow believe that every person is unique and capable for growth, especially when given unconditional positive regard, empathy, and understanding. Unlike other perspectives that focus more on problems or deficits, the humanistic approach focuses on strength, personal meaning, and positive change. It also emphasizes that people have the power to choose their own paths in life and grow emotionally and morally. This perspective is widely used, especially in counseling and education, creating for a more supportive environments where individuals feel valued. Humanistic psychology teaches that when people feel accepted and supported, they are more likely to thrive and succeed. For example, a counselor listening to a client with empathy and without judgment. Next example, a teacher encouraging students to pursue their dreams. Next example, a parent supporting a child's talents even if they are unconventional. Next example, a person working on self-improvement and personal goals. And from that examples, we can say that the humanistic perspective teaches us that within every person lies a light of potential. When nurtured with kindness and understanding, a person or an individual can shine brightly and productively. The next perspective is what we call the biological perspective. It focuses more on physical and biological basis of behavior, including the brain, nervous system, hormones, and genetics. It explores how brain structures like the amygdala and prefrontal cortex and neurotransmitters such as dopamine and serotonin influence actions, emotions, and thoughts. This perspective helps explain why mental health conditions like depression, anxiety, and schizophrenia have biological roots. It also looks at how genetics and heredity affect personality and behavior, showing that some traits and tendencies are passed down from parents to their children. The biological perspective is essential because in understanding the link between the mind and the body, and it is widely used in medicine, psychiatry, neuroscience, and therapy, particularly in treating psychological disorders with medication that balances brain chemicals. It reminds us that mental and emotional health is closely connected to the body's system. Just like, for example, a person taking antidepressants to balance serotonin levels. Next, a brain injury affecting someone's ability to speak or move. A person feeling stressed due to high levels of adrenaline. And last, ADHD symptoms related to different in brain chemistry. With that examples, we can say that the biological perspective teaches us that to heal the mind, we must also care for our brain. What happens in the body echoes in our emotions and thoughts. This time, the third part of our discussion in this pre-recorded video presentation is the important theorist and the theorist. First is Wilhelm Wundt. He is considered as the father of modern psychology. Wilhelm Wundt is known as the father of modern psychology because he established the first psychology laboratory in 1879 in Leipzig, Germany, making psychology a formal and scientific discipline. Wundt focused more on understanding consciousness and mental processes, especially through a method called introspection, where people carefully observe and describe their thoughts and feelings. He wanted to study the mind scientifically, separating psychology from philosophy and biology. His experiments analyzed sensations, feelings, and perceptions, thus providing a systematic way to study the human mind. Wundt's work laid the foundation for experimental psychology and inspired other psychologists to explore behavioral scientifically. He believed that by examining the inner workings of the mind, people could be better understand human experience. His approach led to the development of the structuralism, which focused more on breaking down mental processes into basic elements. For example, a researcher asking participants to describe their thoughts while solving a puzzle. Next, studying how people react to different sounds or lights in the laboratory. Next example, observing how people experience emotions when looking at art. And the last example is teachers analyzing how students mentally process new information. With that, Wilhelm Wundt showed the world that the human mind can be studied scientifically, opening the door for psychology to become a powerful tool for understanding ourselves. The next theorist is Ivan Pavlov. As we all know, Ivan Pavlov is known for his classical conditioning theory. Ivan Pavlov is famous for discovering classical conditioning, a form of learning where a neutral stimulus becomes associated with a meaningful one, triggering a learned response. His most famous experiment involved dogs who learned to salivate when hearing a bell because they associated the bell with food. Pavlov showed that automatic behaviors can be learned through association, a discovery that transformed psychology and education. Classical conditioning helps explain phobias, habits, and emotional reactions, such as why someone might fear dogs after being bitten. His theory is still used in behavior therapy to treat fears and addictions. It shows that environmental stimuli can shape emotional and physical responses without conscious thought. Just like, for example, a child becomes afraid of dogs after being bitten, fear learned through association. A student feeling anxious when hearing the bell for a difficult class. Next example, a person feeling happy when hearing a song linked to a joyful event. And the last example is a cat running to the kitchen when it hears the can opener, expecting that there is a food. And with that example, we can say that Pavlov's discovery reminds us that many of our fears and loves are learned. When we understand how we are formed, we can learn to overcome them. Next is B.F. Skinner. B.F. Skinner developed operant conditioning, a theory that explains how behaviors are learned and maintained based on consequences. According to Skinner, behavior is shaped by reinforcement, or what we call the rewards, and punishment or consequences, which either increase or decrease the likelihood of an action happening again. Positive reinforcement adds something good, like a reward, while negative reinforcement removes something bad, like stopping a scolding. Punishment, on the other hand, is used to reduce undesirable behavior. Skinner believed that behavior is learned through interaction with the environment, and he used experiments with animals like rats and pigeons to demonstrate his theory. His work is widely used in classrooms, parenting, workplaces, and therapy to encourage good behavior and reduce bad habits. By understanding how consequences shape actions, people can create environments that promote learning and growth. Just like, for example, a teacher giving stickers to students who behave well inside the classroom. Next example, parents giving extra playtime for finishing homework. Another example, a worker receiving a bonus for reaching sales goals. And last example, a student losing privileges for breaking school rules. So, with that being said, Skinner's theory reminds us that behavior is not random, meaning it grows from the rewards and consequences we give. Change the consequence, and you can change the behavior of the children. The next theorist is Jean Piaget. Jean Piaget is famous for his theory of cognitive development. Cognitive development explains how children's thinking and reasoning abilities grow through four stages. Piaget believed that children are not miniature adults but instead think differently as they develop. The stages are sensory motor stage from 0 to 2 years old, where learning happens through senses and movement. And the next stage is what we call the pre-operational stage from 2 to 7 years, where children use language and imagination but still lack logical thinking. The next stage is what we call the concrete operational stage from 7 to 11 years old, where they start thinking logically about concrete things. And the last stage is what we call the formal operational stage, where it happens in 12 and above years old, where abstract and hypothetical thinking develops. Piaget emphasizes that that children best learn when they actively involve exploring their world. His theory transformed education by encouraging hands-on learning and age-appropriate instruction. Just like, for example, a toddler learning object permanence by playing peek-a-boo, a preschooler believing a taller glass has more water than a shorter, wider one. Next example, a school-age child understanding that 4 plus 3 is the same as 3 plus 4. And the last example is a teenager debating ethical dilemmas and thinking about abstract ideas like justice. Therefore, Piaget teaches us that learning is a journey. It is a step-by-step journey where children's minds grow as they explore, wonder, and discover around the world. At this point of time, let us talk about the moral development theory of Lawrence Kohlberg. Lawrence Kohlberg proposed the stages of moral development, explaining how people develop moral reasoning or the ability to judge what is right and wrong. Kohlberg identified three levels. First, pre-conventional, where decisions are made to avoid punishment or gain rewards. Next is conventional, where behavior is based on following rules and pleasing others. And the last stage is what we call the post-conventional, where individuals follow universal ethical principles like justice and human rights. His theory shows that moral reasoning evolves as people mature and that higher levels involve thinking about fairness and also equality. It helps educators and parents understand how children develop their sense of right and wrong and how to guide them. Just like, for example, a child following rules to avoid being punished, a teenager doing good deeds to gain approval from peers. Another example, an adult fighting for equality and fairness even if it is unpopular. And the last example is a person choosing to do the right thing even if it is means breaking unfair rules. And with that examples, we can say that Kohlberg's theory teaches us that true morality grows when we choose what is right, not just what is easy or popular. The next theorist is Abraham Maslow. Abraham Maslow introduced the hierarchy of needs, a motivational theory that explains what drives human behavior. The hierarchy is shaped like a pyramid with five levels. First is physiological needs like foods, water, and at the base, followed by safety, security or stability, love and belonging or what we call the relationships and family, esteem or respect and recognition, and finally, self-actualization or achieving one's full potential. Maslow believed that lower level needs must be met before higher ones become motivating. His theory is used in education, counseling, and management to understand what people need to succeed. It also reminds us that basic needs like food, safety, and love are essential for growth. For example, a hungry student struggling to concentrate in class. And the next example is a person seeking stable housing before focusing on career goals. Next example, a teenager craving friendship and belonging. Next example, an artist pursuing their passion to feel fulfilled. And these examples reminds us that to help people reach for their full potential, we must first ensure they stand on their ground, meeting basic needs before expecting greater achievements. At this point of time, the fourth part of our discussion is what we called how we learn, the conditioning and observational learning. Observational learning by Albert Bandura. Observational learning, also known as modeling, is learning that happens by watching others and imitating their behavior. Albert Bandura developed this theory and showed in his famous Bobo doll experiment that children imitate aggressive behavior after watching adults act aggressively. Observational learning teaches that people do not always need direct experience to learn. Instead, they can learn simply by observing that happens what happens to others. This explains how children learn behaviors, social norms, and attitudes from parents, teachers, peers, and media. People are more likely to imitate behaviors that are rewarded or modeled by people they admire. Observational learning is important because in developing both positive and negative behaviors such as kindness, aggression, honesty or dishonesty, and it highlights the responsibility adults and role models have in showing good behavior. Observational learning plays a key role in education, therapy, leadership, and media influence. Just like, for example, a child learning to say please and thank you after hearing parents use polite language. A teenager copying fashion trends seen on social media influencers. Another example, students learning how to solve math problems by watching a teacher's demonstration on the board, and a child's becoming aggressive after watching violent cartoons. With these examples, we can say that the observational learning reminds us that we do speak louder than what we say, because our actions are lessons to those who watch us. The fifth part of our discussion in this pre-recorded video presentation is memory and thinking. As we all know, memory is the process that allows us to take in, keep, and bring back information when needed. It is essential for learning, decision making, and functioning in daily life. Memory is divided into three main processes. These are encoding, storage, and retrieval. Together, these processes allows us to remember lessons, skills, and personal experiences. We will explore each part in detail. First, what we call encoding or taking in. Encoding, it is the first step in memory, where information from the environment is taken in and transformed into a form that the brain can use. This is when we pay attention, see, hear, or feel something and begin to make sense of it. Good encoding often depends on focus and attention. If you are distracted, it is harder to encode information properly. People use different ways to encode information, like using images, sounds, and meanings. Encoding is crucial because if we don't take in information, we won't able to store or recall it later. This process is very active when we are learning something new, listening to lessons, or meeting new people. Strategies like repetition, visualization, and association improve encoding. For example, listening carefully to a teacher's explanation during a lecture. Another example, creating a mental image of the world to remember its meaning. And repeating someone's name when introduced to remember it later. Last one, using rhymes or songs to memorize facts, like the alphabet song. With that being said, encoding reminds us that paying attention is the first key to remembering what we give focus to become part of us. The next one is storage or keeping. Storage is the process of keeping encoded information over time so that it can be used in the future. Once information is encoded, it moves into short-term memory and may eventually be stored in long-term memory if it is important or rehearsed often. Short-term memory holds small amounts of information temporarily, like a phone number we hear once, while long-term memory stores information for longer periods, from days out to a lifetime, and can include facts, personal experiences, and learned skills. Storage depends only on how we will organize and review information. Without proper storage, even it is well encoded information, it can be forgotten. Methods like repetition, connecting new information to old knowledge, and creating meaningful associations help improve storage. Just like, for example, remembering multiplication tables after months of practice. Next example, recalling childhood memories because they are stored in long-term memory. Next example, storing the steps on how to ride a bike so it becomes automatic. And the last example is memorizing vocabulary words for an exam by reviewing them daily. Therefore, we can say from that examples, storage shows us that learning is not just about knowing today, but also keeping knowledge safe for tomorrow. What we store shapes who we are. The last part of memory and thinking is retrieval, or what we call the recalling process. Retrieval is the process of bringing stored information back into conscious awareness when it is needed. It allows us to use knowledge, solve problems, and make decisions. Even if information is well encoded and stored, we need retrieval to access it when necessary. Retrieval can happen effortlessly, like remembering your birthday, or it may require effort, like recalling details for a test. Sometimes, cues like smells, sounds, or related words help trigger retrieval. Without effective retrieval, learning and memory are incomplete. Practicing retrieval through quizzes, discussions, and teaching others makes memory stronger. For example, answering a question during a classroom recitation. Another example, recalling a recipe while cooking, remembering the name of a person you met weeks ago. Last example is taking a test and writing down memorized information. With that being said, retrieval reminds us that knowledge becomes powerful only when we can use it. What we recall gives meaning to what we have learned. The last part of our discussion in this pre-recorded video presentation is the real-life application of the general psychology or psychology. Psychology is not only a subject to study but a tool we use every day in real life. It helps us, it helps people understand themselves, improve relationships, and solve problems in schools, workplaces, homes, and communities. Psychological principles guide how teachers teach, how counselors help clients, how parents raise children, and how businesses motivate employees. By understanding our behavior, our emotions, the way we think, and how we learn, psychology provides practical solutions to real life challenges, and psychological theories are applied in education to create better teaching methods, especially in mental health to treat anxiety and depression, in relationships to improve communication, and in workplaces to increase productivity. Psychologists also help design safer communities and promote healthy lifestyle. In addition, understanding psychology allows people to cope with stress, solve conflicts, and make wiser decisions. Psychology also is part of our daily lives because, as we all know, it helps us deal with our feelings, make friends, and achieve personal growth. Therefore, it is very important to study more about psychology because it is sometimes overlooked by some people. And if it is not being studied, we will not be informed or we will not be knowledgeable of the important concepts, theories, strategies, and also the key concepts that we need to learn for us to be aware of what psychology really is. Thank you for listening. Once again, I am Mark Del P. Inojo, studying at Negros Oriental State University, Shaton Campus. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you have learned something great in this pre-recorded video presentation. Thank you, and God bless us all.